Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. For many years, racial discrimination was the law and the social order in the South and in border states like Paducah. Majority whites kept African Americans separate and unequal. It was evident everywhere. Segregation was everywhere. African Americans could not eat in restaurants with whites. They could not go to parks with whites. They didn't go to school with whites. And African Americans could not stay in white-run hotels. With me today is Betty Dobson, who, along with some others, preserved the historic Metropolitan Hotel here in Paducah, one of the few places during the segregation period where African Americans could stay. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And before we begin, please tell everyone why you're dressed in the early 20th century fashion. And I like the outfit, by the way.
Well, thank you, child. My name is Maggie Steed. I'm the builder of the Hotel Metropolitan that you're talking about, and I thank you for saying all those kind things you said.
That's great. So, bring us up to date. We talked about this, 1999 when you all started?
Yes.
That's hard to believe. It's been that long. So, let's start and talk about the Metropolitan today, then go back and talk about the history of Miss Maggie and others, the very interesting people who stayed there and owned the place.
Well, Maggie built the hotel in 1909, and she was married to a gentleman named Henry Steed, and Mr. Steed and Maggie would take in people as they came into the area because they needed a place to stay. And Maggie, being a business-minded woman, as they said, or entrepreneur, thought, you know, we need something for our people, a respectable place that they could stay. You know, there were some hotels here in Paducah, but they weren't that respectable, you know, place to stay. You know, it might have been gun slinging, knife cutting, you know, that kind of thing. And Maggie wanted a nice upscale place for colored folks when they came through the area, so they would have a place to stay.
Was it purpose-built as a hotel, or was it a house converted?
No, it was she built it as a hotel. She was a entrepreneur at spirit, at heart, and she said, it was quoted in the Golden Jubilee of Colored Baptists of Kentucky. They came here to Paducah. They were here for a convention at Washington Street Baptist Church, and they decided to stay at the Hotel Metropolitan. And in this book, it was, you know, pictures of different people, pastor, churches, this type of thing. But when it came to Maggie, instead of her sending a picture of herself, she sent a picture of the hotel. So we found out what the hotel looked like originally through that. And a friend of mine who is with the Filson Society, Filson Club,
in
called and said, you know, Betty, I was going through this book and I found this picture of the hotel. Is it still standing? And I said, yeah, we're still working on it and stuff. And that was before, you know, right after we took this project on. And he sent us this picture of the hotel because we were still like, do we want to take it to the 50s, the 1950s look, or, you know, we're going to just work with what we got. And then here was this amazing picture that Maggie set aside for us to have, to know how to make
So
the hotel
ideally
look.
then you would like to restore it to the early 20th century period?
Ideally. It on the outside, it looks that way. When you go inside, it's still that homey, welcoming place that Maggie had, with some new updated features, you know. But when people come to the hotel, that's the first thing that they'll say, man, it feels like home, or it feels so welcoming. And
How many rooms did she open with?
there's 11 upstairs, and there were 2 downstairs that were available for clients. And Maggie's business was going so well that she was planning on a 3rd floor, but she passed before she could get that done. She died in 1925.
Well, now today, as we speak, what is the status of the hotel?
Well, I would say that it's about 90% finished. We have landscaping. We have floors. We have painted walls now. Uh, it's just amazing.
Well, now going back, now that's interesting about the painted walls. Were you able to find decor, an idea of what it might have looked like, or how did you all do that?
Yes, one of our board members had we were finding all this wallpaper, and one of our board members was just like, we have to research this a little further. And the school here, West Kentucky Community and Technical College, assisted us with a project to look into the wallpaper, and it was really amazing. And, you know, I wasn't that big on wallpaper. You know, I was more about the you know, finishing the project. But you know, I guess all those parts are finishing
they do.
the
It adds
project.
authenticity to it, absolutely.
And there was one pattern that they were able to say, you know, it's dating back to you know, the 1910s, 1920s, and this is something that Maggie had done. And you could tell not only by what was left by other people, like the Golden Jubilee, that was saying that it was a modern hotel with all kinds of conveniences.
And what year was that?
It was in, they stayed in 1911, I believe.
So it would have been really going.
Really new,
at that time. Yeah, brand new.
And so they were just really amazed by it. And but she just had a flair. You could just tell it. And what I tried to portray her character, I figured Maggie had to be somewhat on the rough exterior. You know, I believe she was a God-fearing woman, because to pull off that type of feat, to build a hotel in 1909 when women didn't have rights.
Very
you know.
much of a man's world then.
Yes,
Right.
you know,
right.
and not only did she convince Langford and Orr to build the Hotel Metropolitan, she convinced the premier architect of Paducah to do the renderings for the blueprints for the hotel. And his name escapes me at this moment, but he is the same gentleman who designed Whitehaven. So the columns that you see in front of Whitehaven in the Hotel Metropolitan are somewhat similar, and it's because it was designed by the
Right.
same person.
For years, when I first saw the hotel many years ago, it had a sign. Do you still have that
You
original
know
sign?
we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we kept the sign.
How far back does that sign go? Was that the original sign, do you
No,
suppose?
well, I don't know. However, I don't know. I might have told you this story too, Barry,
Go
since
ahead.
we've gone back so far. With the picture that we got from the Filson Club, you can see this Hotel Metropolitan on the front door, and there's a little dog laying in front of the door, but that's another story. But you can see that glass. Well, when you go upstairs in the historic bathroom, and there's this cabinet that's sitting on the wall, and it's colorful and whatnot, and we were looking at that, and you could, if you look really careful, you saw an H-O. So we got the picture and began looking at the picture and looking at that piece of glass that was in the cabinet. It's the same piece.
Wow.
So for years we had it there, and the little paint renderings were coming off of it. Well, we had some people to come through, young folks, I believe, saw the little pilling curls, pulled all of that off. So where there was the words, you could see the H-O that was coming through.
Uh-huh.
They peeled all the paint off of
Oh,
it.
no.
But you could still, you could still look at it, and you could still see the H, and you could still see the O. And so, you know, we have little things like that Maggie has left. The hotel leaves us signs and signals. And
Do you hope to maybe open it as a museum someday, or what exactly?
we do have exhibits in it. We have exhibits now, and we've had people in to come and see them for right now for Black History Month, even though it's coming to an end. We had Dr. Nancy Dobson to come by, and she did a thing on hair. And it was just amazing, and it just was kind of strange because Annie Turbo Malone, is that right? Annie Turbo Malone, who discovered the hair products
Mm-hmm.
for African American
Mm-hmm.
women,
Mm-hmm.
was the first African American woman millionaires. But it wasn't really, I guess you could say, authenticated because most people think of Madam C.J. Walker as the first African American woman who was a millionaire. Well, Miss Annie had discovered Madam C.J. Walker. And so, you know, what does all that mean? Well, Miss Malone, we started looking into Annie Turbo Malone because we found out she came to Paducah. There was a gentleman named Mr. Bridges who had phoned me and sent me pictures of Annie here at an airport. Her pilot, who was Jonathan Robinson, who was known as the Brown Condor, was her private pilot, and she flowed in here to Paducah around 1936. And so we found out that Annie's parents are buried here in Paducah. So, you know, Paducah has all kinds of
Right.
ties
Right.
to all kinds of
Right.
people.
Yeah.
I know I was going a long way with that, but, you know, I just wanted to show people that Paducah has a rich African American history that we have not even yet, you know, touched the, you know, broke the surface on.
And we've talked about this before, and again, during the segregation days, a story I've heard for years is that when Louis Armstrong came here long ago to play for a dance on the roof of the Cobb, dancing under the stars on the Cobb, once he finished, he and his band, they were not allowed to stay in the Cobb, and they came across and stayed in the Metropolitan. There have been many others. Talk about some of the famous people who have stayed there through the years.
Okay, where do I begin? Well, how about Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, Thurgood Marshall,
I remember
Ella
that.
Fitzgerald,
Wow. Yeah, yeah. B.B. King.
B.B. King.
And the story about B.B. King, Robert Coleman told me many years ago, was that B.B. King would phone ahead and ask his mother to make him sweet potato pies.
I've heard that many times.
And I'm thinking, too, that at one time, Gladman Humbles told me that B.B. King would sit on the porch and sort of have a little impromptu concert for the kids in the neighborhood. So it was amazing. And another story, which I didn't know until before we went on, we started the show, was a connection to Ray Charles that's unknown. Tell us about that.
Yes. A few years ago, we met a gentleman named Duke Wade. Duke Wade is from Catawba, Kentucky, and he is the half brother of my mother's best friend, Aunt Irene. And she always told us how this man knew all these people and everything. And so I called him up one day and talked to him, and he was like, yeah, I know Ray Charles. And I said, did he ever stay in Paducah? And he said, yeah, he stayed at a little hotel down there. And I said, I'm restoring a hotel. Which hotel is it? And he's, you know, he's really sharp on things, you know. And he said, the Metro. And I said, the Metropolitan? He said, I'm sure it is. It's the Metro. And he came down. I invited him down that summer. And he came into the hotel, and then that was when it was scary, when we really didn't have floors and whatnot. And
Right,
he
I
came
remember.
through, and he was like, oh, wait a minute, there should be a room with a fireplace in it. Well, we found this room, and we knew the fireplace was there, but, you know, we was like, okay, do we want to put this fireplace back? You know, we was going back and forth with that. And Duke was saying, if you do anything, that's the one thing you want to do is put that fireplace back. Because he said, let me tell you who was back here. He said, Ray Charles. He said, Sam and Dave was back here in this room. The Wilson guy. I can't think his...
The comedian?
No.
What's
Well,
that? Flip Wilson's
not
husband.
Flip,
No,
but
farther back than that.
yeah, Jackie Wilson.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, those kind of names. And I mean, Della Reese, he told us Della Reese stayed there, and we had no idea. And he
Wow.
was like, right here at this fireplace. And he said, let me tell you why. He said, we couldn't always make it up the stairs. So he said it was easy to go back in that back room. He said there was a cot back there. And he said we would always sit back there on that cot. And he said somebody would be leaning over there on the a fireplace, and they would tell you stories. He said, I didn't stay at the hotel. He said, I had family. And he said, when you had family, you stayed with the family. And he said,
And he was Ray Charles's road manager.
he said, but he booked all those people there. And he said, I know for a fact, you know, so it was great
Wow.
talking with
Now,
him.
are you going to have displays, say, featuring this man, or do you have him on video? Or
Yes, we got him on
that would
video.
be tremendous.
And
to go
he's-
in that room and have a little TV showing this guy talking, you could look around and see. That would be wonderful.
It's, as I said, that you know, when you go in, it's just so powerful. You can almost feel those people still being there, the spirit. Well, in fact, you know, we used to have a booklet that we put out that was called The Spirit of the Place, and it was just, it's still so powerful when you come in and you know those names have been there, and you look at that staircase, and you know you could touch that railing, and you know you touched where you know, Ella.
Right.
You know,
Louis Armstrong.
Yeah,
all these famous people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, those folks. We didn't even know that. We found out that Jesse Owens stayed at the hotel. Marcus Haynes came here in 2002.
Wow.
And he said, I said, you know, we heard that Jesse Owens was here in Paducah, but we couldn't put him in the hotel. He said, oh, yeah, I'll tell you when he was here. He was here in 1946. And I was like, really? He said, yes, he traveled with the Harlem Globetrotters. He was a feature. You know, he said we needed a draw, and we had him as one of our drawing cards. And he said he
Wow.
stayed here in 1946. And we had this little board that was in the entryway that you would sign in on, and it he said, just make sure you keep this, because he said all these people, he was rubbing it as he was talking. He said so many people had, you know, been here, and he was just really, you know, it was real emotional for
Sure.
him. And,
Sure. She served meals, I'm sure, at the hotel. Do you have any idea of what she served? I mean, have you run across any recipes or accounts? That would
no. You know, the hotel had 3 different women to run it, basically. And we didn't find anything. But I have to tell you that Mr. Haynes told us that I guess Miss Burbridge was the lady who was running the hotel at that time, Mamie Burbridge. And he said that you had to come down there and get your biscuits and coffee if you felt good or bad, indifferent. You get down here and get this biscuit and coffee. And he said that.
no room service.
He said, oh, we had those mornings. He said, because, you know, Paducah had a lot of spots, hot spots. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah. And he said, we try to visit those hot spots. And he said, some mornings we didn't feel like it. He said, but that lady told us you get down here and get your coffee and biscuits.
That's great.
So.
Well, who were the managers through the years, from the founder forward?
Well, now Maggie ran the hotel from 1909 till her death in 1925. She willed it to her son, who tried to run the hotel for a couple years after her death. And then the William Burbridge, I believe was his name, and Miss Mamie Burbridge brought the hotel. And I don't remember if Mr. Burbridge died or if she divorced him, but she ended up running the hotel, and she ran the hotel until her death. And then the Gaines family came along and ran the hotel. Well, it was mainly Mrs. Gaines's baby, I believe. You know, it appears that way. Not taking anything away from
Right.
Mr. Gaines, but I think it was pretty much
And her name was it?
Olivia.
I thought it was Olivia. And she had a rather famous son, basketball, Big House Gaines, Clarence Big House Gaines.
yes.
Yeah. And I remember when he would come back here, they would go over to the hotel, and he still, you talked to him, I'm sure, several times about the hotel.
Several times,
Yeah.
and miss him so much, because he was not only, you know, he was a coach, you know, and you know how coaches are, they're about action and getting things done, and that's the way Coach Gaines was about this project. And there was a group of us that was together, and we didn't know what we were up against. We're a bunch of housewives. We came together. We saw a need. We wanted to try to make it work. And there were some men on our board too. I don't want to take anything away from the men, but we weren't certain what we needed to do. And Coach brought resources, and his resources were resources. They pulled in the community, help us to pull in the community, because Coach himself is a magnet, to bring people together. But when we got the officials, the city officials, our state officials together, and here's Coach, who is a very massive man, and
They didn't call him Big House for
oh,
nothing.
for nothing. What you saying? And,
Yeah.
and when he was asking you to do something, it was like you had to. And not only was he telling you to do something for the hotel, he was also saying, I want you to lose some weight. I want you to commit to doing some walking or running some laps or something, It was typical Coach Gaines,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
God bless his heart. I can't say how much we're
Oh, sure.
indebted to him,
Sure.
and
Sure.
how much we miss him. Before his death, he came the year prior to his passing, and he said, I feel good about this. I think everything's gonna work out all right. And I said, we're gonna try to rush and get it finished. And he was like, I'm not worried about it. He said, I know it's gonna be okay. And
When did the hotel close?
it closed in 1996, and it sat idled for 3 years until it was condemned. And we weren't looking to do anything like that, but after finding the history and losing so many buildings that were significant in our history, the African American history, it just seemed a shame to let the hotel go. And it wasn't just us that was saying it was the whole community that was saying it. And I know even thanks to you, Barry, I know that you were very supportive in the beginning, and helped us
Thank
to
you.
get the word out. And
I'm very pleased that the success has been achieved. Now, the address. If people don't know where it is, tell the address.
we're located at 724 Oscar Cross Avenue. We're about 2 blocks from the county courthouse. And if you would like to come by, you can contact me at 443-7918, or you can call the Visitors Bureau, which is 443-83. I don't know.
Visitors Bureau.
Visitors
Right,
Bureau.
right. So it's open by appointment.
Yes,
Yeah,
and we're hoping, it is our goal to open it about mid-March, to have it available for people to come in and see on a regular basis.
Oh, that's wonderful. Still looking for artifacts, relics, anything like
Always,
that?
Always. We had people to bring us purses. We had people to bring us the burners for your press and comb. And for some of you all that don't know what a press and comb is, you would put it on something hot, get this hot, and then you would do your hair with it. And Miss Malone patented those. So
Wow.
just wanted to throw that in here. And
Sure.
So,
Yeah, that's great. And now the costume.
Yes.
Do you greet people? Do you show them around the costume, or?
Yes, child, I do, if they ask me to. I just don't let everybody in my hotel, but I let some of them in. Had a few kids the other night, Washington Street, brought their children by. They was nice little children.
That's great, and that'll add to the fun too. Anyone else? I'm trying to think any of the famous people that we've left out, or stories of how you come by things. Do people come by and say, "Would you like to have this?" Things like that. Those are always interesting.
Yeah, I tell you, one day, this lady, Miss Barnes, Joe Barnes, called, and she said, "Betty, I want you to come by and get this little couch. It belongs to the hotel, and you should have it back."
Wow.
And it was a wicker little sofa couch. And she said that her and Miss Strickland traded out furniture, and it should come back to the hotel. And so I
That
brought it back.
really adds authenticity, because a lot of restored homes and buildings have got furniture from the period. But if you've got an actual piece, that really adds oomph to it.
Oh, Barry, let me share this one with you. We, in the picture of the 1909 picture that I was telling you about, there is on the front porch 2 chairs and this dog. Well, the chairs are still at the hotel, which, you know, that's putting them at 91 or so years old, you know, so we're really proud of those. And we did a soft opening this past year before last. And, you know, just letting people see how we've come about and that type of thing. And so I was showing people the chairs. I said, see this chair? And then this looked familiar. And I was going, that's the chair. And they said, yeah, almost like that dog. And I was like, what dog? That black dog. I was like, oh, black dog. And so that day, we all began to notice this black dog that was there. The dog, for 2 weeks, people had been there working on the hotel. We would start about 9 o'clock, stay there until about 9 o'clock at night for 2 weeks straight. Never saw a black dog anywhere. And this day that we had this opening, this black dog roamed the whole day. He stayed there with us from start to finish. And when everyone started noticing him, he started noticing us. And so it was like, one of our board members, do you think it's a spirit or Hank or something? You know, I was like, no. But the dog seemed to had heard us, and he went across the street on a vacant lot. And he watched us. And we were all standing on the porch watching him. And someone said, if that dog comes across the street, I'm out of here. Well, the dog heard him. He started coming across the street. They went inside. My friend, our one of the board members, and myself stood there on the porch. And the dog came as far as the steps. And he stopped. The dog was wagging his tail. He left. We have not seen that dog anymore.
Wow, that's a great story.
And what's really great about it, people were noticing it, and then we was telling them about the picture.
Yeah.
So the neighbors that was in the area was like, we're looking for that dog, and we haven't seen it. I mean, you know, I would stop by the hotel.
I wonder what became of the dog in the picture. If did he belong to the hotel, or?
I don't know, but he looked so relaxed. I was like, you know that you are welcome at the Hotel Metropolitan.
When there's a dog on the porch.
Oh,
right. Yeah, that's great. In the few seconds we have left, again, give a contact telephone number. If anyone has any artifacts, relics, or just wants to see the place, they should call
Betty Dobson at 443-7918 or the Paducah Visitors Bureau.
I'm Barry Craig. We're out of time. My guest today was Betty Dobson of the Hotel Metropolitan. Go down there and see it. It is really an interesting place. Please join us next time.